Trucost has developed TER, a secure online portal to facilitate the verification and collection of environmental data. A significant advantage of TER is that it is pre-populated with data from Trucost's model. The model allows us to calculate the environmental impacts of companies that do not currently disclose, report, or indeed measure their impacts. In other words, we're able to fill the gaps in the data using your sector of operation and revenue. Any relevant data that you can provide is validated by Trucost analysts and incorporated into the supply chain footprint. The TER is a tool that you can access at any time, enabling you to enter new data as it becomes available and download an updated environmental footprint. I'm now going to take you through the various phases of the TER step by step. You will find the portal at http://ter.trucost.com. Enter your username and password, which are contained in the email you should have received from us. If you have not received your login details or you've forgotten your password, please contact us at engagement@trucost.com or phone UK on 0207 160 9852. Before you log onto the portal, and at any time throughout the process, you'll be able to view the terms and conditions. These are located in the Legals tab on the top left-hand side of the screen. Once you've successfully logged into the TER, you'll be taken to a short introduction which will briefly outline the process. Simply click Next, located at the bottom of the page, to continue. The Organization Profile page will be pre-populated with your company's details, including name and address. It's important that you check that the details already present are accurate and make any necessary changes by clicking on the Edit tab. This next page requires you to enter your own contact details and those of any additional users. You may amend these details by clicking on the Edit tab located next to the User Profile tab, and this will bring up a new window. It's important to note that when asked for the username and password at the bottom of the page, these are the same login details supplied to you by Trucost via letter or email. In order for us to calculate your footprint, we require you to enter some financial data, and this can be done on the financial profile. Here, the revenue for the whole organization should be entered, not just the turnover relating to a particular customer. This data should be entered in millions. For example, revenue of 2.5 million would just be entered as 2.5, or revenue of 500,000 would be entered as 0.5. Just as a note on the revenue data, we only use this to calculate the environmental impacts of the organization and for no other purpose. This data is kept confidential and will not be shared with any third parties. The Sector Profile page is where you are required to confirm or amend your sectors of operation. The Trucost model uses the North American Industrial Classification System and breaks it down to 464 sectors, so it's a fairly detailed breakdown. But to make it easier to navigate, it's split into 3 levels, each one drilling down to more specific sectors. So, for example, you click Manufacturing, then Chemical Manufacturing, then Pharmaceutical Preparation Manufacturing. You then need to assign a percentage of your operations that occur in this sector. So, if you only work in one sector, this will be 100. But say, as in this example, you operate in more than one sector, then you assign it a different percentage. Based on turnover entered and sector chosen, an environmental profile for the organization is calculated. This will consist of direct and indirect categories. To help you understand what we're doing, we need to start by describing how businesses impact the environment. This picture illustrates how a business's operations impact the environment and the different sources of these impacts. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol is the international standard for reporting GHG emissions, and it splits emissions into 3 scopes. Very simply, Scope 1 relates to emissions produced directly by the organisation, for example, burning diesel for generators, gas for boilers, or fuel for company vehicles. Scope 2 relates to emissions produced from the generation of electricity used by the company. And Scope 3 relates to business travel and all other supply chain emissions. Direct emissions are those that arise as a consequence of day-to-day operations, including burning gas for heating and the use of fuel for a fleet of company cars. If you have already measured your direct environmental footprint for the financial year specified, you can enter the calculated emissions in tonnes into the Greenhouse Gases Scope 1 calculator located at the top of the page. We appreciate that for many of you, this will be the first time you have measured your emissions, and so we have developed a range of calculators to convert physical units consumed and expenditure into emissions data. It should be noted that expenditure data is the least accurate type of data, as fuel prices will vary with the type of vehicle, fuel, and country. Consequently, any emissions of physical units consumed will overwrite the expenditure data. It's important to note that any data that is unknown should not be deleted, but should be left as our estimates to provide the most accurate footprint. Environmental impacts that fall outside an organization's direct responsibility are called indirect impacts. The purchase of electricity, any form of transport where an organization does not pay for the fuel, supplied water, raw materials, and finished products are considered indirect impacts. The indirect categories consist of electricity, to be entered in the Greenhouse Gases Scope 2 calculator, business travel, via air and rail, to be entered in the Greenhouse Gases Scope 3 calculator. Just to note, the indirect travel calculators do not include emissions from company cars or fleets. These are classed as direct emissions. Depending on your sector choice, you may be responsible for other environmental impacts. In addition to greenhouse gases, it is usual for most companies to also have waste identified as an environmental impact. Once you've finished entering your environmental data, you will reach the final stage where you'll receive a link to your environmental report. It's important to note that you may log back into the portal at any time up until the deadline and update your data. Your environmental report will automatically be updated. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Please log in at http://ter.trucost.com to complete the register. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us on 0207 160 9852. Thank you and goodbye.